Welcome everybody to the show. This is Counterclipping show number 212 for February. What the hell is it? March 3rd, 2025. So I'd like to thank everybody for coming out this evening. Remind you all to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed or following or whatever already. And do check out the links in the video description to help support the channel. Let me turn the banner on. I have actually updated the banner this time, which is fantastic. So there's that, and I'm going to throw a link to the Ardwulf Lair Discord community if you would like to join into the chat as well. A fresh link today. And if anybody has problems with this, or it's a month from now, just email me. That's in the ticker, and I'll send you a personal invite. It's all good. Super chats and super stickers are on, so that's a great way to support the show and to get your comment highlighted. I might miss it if it's not highlighted for me. Thank you, YouTube, for that imaginative service. So I have no idea what some of these questions are. Hold on a second. All right, so I think we first need to... Forgot to set that up in advance. Say hello to Alan Salzar, B. Goble, B. Red, and Blue Steel, Board Gaming Geezer, Bob Goddard, Brent McCabe, Carl Fung is here. Carl, thanks for stopping by. Christoph DeClerc, Christopher Smith, Dale Brady, Daniel Silverthorne, Dave Poirier, David Imperato, David Zell, DJ Flippy, Egret, Eric Selna, welcome back. Henry Hartman, High Flyer, the legend himself, Fucko, is here. Jeff Beeler, Jeff T, Joe Hammond, Joe Okabayashi, Joe Perez, John Mogg, Jonathan Dyer, Carl Crater from the Wargame Bootcamp, Lee Grant, Mark Hodgkinson, Martin Sample, Meandering Mike, Michael Avanzini, Panzer Division Lair, Paul Dangle, Paul Sin, Rob Johnson, Robert Lane, Robert Maxey, Sean I need new glasses. I actually have an eye doctor appointment this coming week. Or this week, I should say. These glasses are not working anymore. Where did I leave off? Rob Johnson, Robert Lane, Robert Maxey, Sean Sullivan, Stacking Limit is here. Stigler is in the house. Stuart Ellis Gorman. Stuart, thanks for stopping by. Todd Cox, Tony Mammal, and William Aarons. Once again, thanks everybody for stopping by. I got a notification from Chrome today that the plugin that I use to put the chat on the screen is no longer supported. I turned it back on anyway, but I predict that it will stop working at some point, and I'll have to actually figure out a replacement. So hopefully that won't happen all that soon. We do have a little bit of news, and I want to dissect our way into this big MMP info dump that came out a couple weeks ago and that we didn't get a chance to talk about yet. But in the meantime, we are clipping ASL still, and we are drinking one of my very, very favorite scotches. I am told it is correctly pronounced Lecheg. There's a knowledgeable person on YouTube and I have confirmed that information. This is made by Tobermory. This particular stuff is bottled at 46.3%. And not only is the malt that they make the whiskey out of smoked, but the stream that feeds the distillery process runs through a peat bog. So it's got like extra dimensions of peat. If you don't like peated whiskey, probably not going to like this much at all, but I think it is amazing, and you cannot buy it in Ohio, unfortunately. I got this up in Wisconsin when we went up to Noble Night. Speaking of which, the next Noble Night trip may be happening a little sooner than previously planned, but that does not mean all that soon. We still have to get through the summer convention season for any such trip. So, but we will be talking about it. We are going to talk about purging war games tonight because I think it's time for me to do a purge. So here was my strategy. I'll tell you what my strategy was once we've gone through the news. Multi-Man Publishing has a new website. Go check that out at mmpgamers.com if you want. I was quite surprised by it, but I didn't see it on the first day either. It was actually quite shocking. And it looks like it's not just a cosmetic change where they change the CSS sheet on the back end. It looks like there's a back end change too, because the orders are being broken down differently than they were before, because I went in to cancel a pre-order. As part of the purging process, I have started by canceling some pre-orders. One from MMP, and 4 from GMT, something like that. But I still have 12 open with GMT. So, Mike, I want to address this question. Robert Lane asks, has anyone ever played the Viva l'Empereur series from Legion? So I have not. However, I will observe that there was a game of that series on the table at Winterfest. It was Leipzig. They actually it's big enough that they had to actually break it up into 2 tables. So we'll see if what actually gets purged. But let's talk about should I share this? All right, I'm not even going to share this, but there's a Multiman Publishing post on Facebook. It's under the Multiman Publishing account, so you can check this out if you want. I will read it and then comment as appropriate. And this is going to be from Pete Bartlett, who is the publicity front man over there. There was an ASL roundtable led by Kurt Schilling. I believe that is available on YouTube if you want to watch the whole thing, but I didn't watch it because it's kind of long. Marco Polo Bridge, historical ASL module, which will be, I'm not really clear on this, will be at minimum be on pre-order in April. Okay, so that's like right around the corner. It's going to be for ASL and starter kit. I'm confused as to whether that is 1 box or 2. It would be economical if it was 1 box, and I think that might make complete sense. So yes, this is correct. Some of the earlier games in the series were from Prattson Editions, and that is that is exactly what I said at the time. Was like, oh, this is the Prattson one, right. But Legion has done several of them at this point as well. I think none of the big, not like Leipzig or Austerlitz battles. I am unclear as to exactly which battles those games have covered, because I have not played that series. It looked interesting, so I wouldn't mind trying it at some point. All right, so full-sized paper rules reprint coming soon. Binders will not be reprinted due to associated costs. To be blunt, they should have dumped the binder about 15 years ago. The binder is a dumb format. The best format for the ASL rulebook nowadays is the digital version, because it's just updated and you don't have to worry about swapping pages in and out every time something new comes out. That's a huge headache, because what I have is like a box of extra pages, because I don't want to throw them away because I'm a nut. And then I'll like every 10 years when I look at that box, I'll be like, yeah, I don't know what's good in here and what's not. So I got to like sit there and figure it out. That's a big headache. I don't want to deal with that. The digital version is the way to go. If you want the physical version for the table, which I completely understand, I would want the physical book at the table, then the regular printed volume will be completely fine. So I think this is a smart move, long overdue on MMP's part. All right, Beyond Valor and all starter kits will be back in stock within 6 months. This is I could beat this up some more, as we have done repeatedly here, and we will not be alone in observing that the ASL starter kits and Beyond Valor and the rulebook are one or more of which are often unavailable. This is not a desirable situation. Those people who are interested in getting into ASL or checking it out could just turn away and end up playing something like Lock and Load Tactical instead, or something like that. This is a bad policy. Now, what the solution is, it might not be as simple as just, maintaining a constant stock of those materials in their very small warehouse. But I would encourage those folks to think outside the box. Let's see, I'll make sure I'm not missing anything too critical in the chat. So, all right, so HASL and E-Pocket rulebooks are nearing completion. So that is all the historical module rules, and the pocket version, I guess. I'm not sure why you would need that. Unless that just means like the Chapter H stuff, which is possible. So it would be great to have digital versions of those too. I think this is also a good move. MMP has moved printing overseas in an effort to keep game prices down. Likely the reason Beyond Valor and the starter kits didn't go back to print right away. That's the exact quote. So no politics, folks. Your folks are not here for that. This seems a weird time to have made that particular decision, but we'll see how it shakes out. I don't know that anything is completely clear at this time. So I have over 600 war games at this point. I have a considerable amount of RPG stuff. I have less RPG stuff than I had at one point, but it's probably pretty close at this point. But I've got 8 times as many war games as I've ever had. We'll get into all this. I want to cover this. All right. ASL Journal 16 16 should be available at the 2025 WBC, which I believe is in July. I have not checked the dates. If anybody wants to put them in the chat, like Marty, who I know probably just knows them, that is cool. For Aslock in October, that is the ASL Oktoberfest. They will have a scenario pack as usual, and the Rotterdam HASL will at least be on pre-order. I know nothing about this Rotterdam product, but it's an HASL. That's that. Now I know. So Winter Offensive 2026, they plan to release the Winter Offensive bonus pack, ASL Journal 17, and the Kharkov historical module. Cool. I might buy Kharkov. I could think about that. I would think about that. I have ordered Ponyri, so that didn't get canceled. The Chef DuPont HASL is almost ready to go to the printer. This seems really aggressive, by the way, for MMP. Starter Kit Magazine #1 should be released in the next 3 months. Cool. What does that mean for the support in the journal? Does that mean that the Starter Kit people will need to buy a separate magazine? Or will the journal continue to cover Starter Kit materials, in which case the Starter Kit people are going to have to buy both of them, or people who play both, who are probably super confused, will then need to buy both? I'm not sure how they're going to break this down. I don't object to the idea. Well, you got to keep people happy with something. Maybe ASL Starter Kit Magazine #1 will have like a little mini scenario with like 10 counters and like a little postcard type game map in it, so people can actually play the freaking thing until the starter kits become available. That's not the dumbest idea I've come up with this week. They're working on an ASL Club campaign system. I am curious to see how this develops. I think it is a very interesting idea. One of the things that has been noticed in other types of analog gaming, and I'm talking about RPGs specifically here, is like this idea of organized play, right? Where there's like a society or whatever it is. I don't know what the D&D one is even called anymore. It used to be what was it called? The RPGA. I actually ran a couple events for RPGA at a Gen Con many years ago for the sake of getting the free badge. The Shadowrun adventure I ran for the RPGA was excellent. It wasn't strictly D&D, it was just mostly D&D. Applying this idea to people also like competitive play, right? And a lot of the ASL events have a tournament type of format. And the tournament type of format continues to pull people in at events like WBC and the other World Series of Board Gaming, wherever that's at, in Vegas, I guess. Vicky, thanks for stopping by. So I think if that is what they are thinking of, I think it's going to take probably 5 years to get off the ground. But I think it's a super interesting idea. I'd be very curious to see how that works out. Spanish Civil War HASL is in playtesting and should be ready in the next 12 to 16 months. I don't know. There have been Spanish Civil War scenarios already. If it's a historical module, yeah, that might work. I don't know what it's about, so who knows? I mean, be curious to see it. All out-of-print ASL material is being looked at for possible release via Wargame Vault in an e-version. I think this is a great idea. Furthermore, I would make Starter Kit #1 available that way as well. That way, at least you can say, well, it's between printings right now, but there's a print-and-play version you can buy for, I don't know, $5 on Wargame Vault. I think that is a pretty good idea as well. If Pete's here, he can write all this marketing genius down. So, I mean, to me, anyway, the headache of putting print and play material together is except for the smallest projects or the biggest passion projects, I think is too much trouble to make it make sense. If I was like super into Magic Realm, you can get all that print and play Magic Realm stuff and make your own really fancy version of that. If I was like into Magic Realm, I would consider doing something like that. I am not. So, and I will not be hand assembling a copy of Case Blue. Anybody with that kind of time is envied by me. All right. So, well, wishy-washy. I mean, you know, I think they're being kind of straight up about this. So I don't have a problem. The dates are, you know, fluid, but if we don't understand that the dates are fluid by now, you know, what are we doing? So The Renegades, well, yeah, we'll see. I will have comments on that when there's actually something to look at. So at least some advertising material to look at. Until I see something, or at least an announcement or something, I don't care what Renegade is doing with the squad leader property. So, you might be able to make this work. I don't know enough about this engagement, even though I've played a very little bit of the TCS game. So, well, that's true, and maybe we'll get into that at some point, but perhaps that is not tonight. This is 100% correct. ASL uses I think the word is metric shit ton of abbreviations. There's a giant glossary of them, and it does save a lot of space all over the rules. So there's that. You know what? Why not? Right? I mean, maybe you sell like the first. It only comes. I don't know. This. Now I'm doing too much work for MMP without being paid. You could maybe. You could just say, yeah, starter kit number 1 is just free, and you can put it on, play it in Vassal or whatever. Cool, no problem. I would personally not have an issue with that. That it's not my call to make. And then maybe you sell scenario packs. I mean, I think scenario packs. I mean, they do scenario packs anyway, but at some point, I'm kind of tired of seeing maps. There's like 95 of them now, and that's just like the main numbered series, and not all the tiny ones. They're not any smaller, but you know what I'm saying. The horizontal boards and the deluxe boards and all the other different variant boards. So, yes, there is a TPS report on this exact topic, in fact. Anyway, yeah, I just, they've had the property in hand for like several years now and haven't really said anything. They've been asked about it repeatedly, and pretty much they're saying other stuff keeps getting in the way, which is a perfectly legitimate answer as far as I'm concerned. But I'm also not going to keep an eye on them to see if there's progress. I'm not that interested in this property that I need this. I have ASL in the meantime, and I kind of predict I'm going to stick with that. But I'm very curious to see what they do with it, because I think it could be, because they're going to have better retail store penetration than anybody in war games. So we could possibly see that kind of thing at Target or Walmart or something like that. That's not impossible. So I'm really curious to see what they do, even though I am not necessarily super excited about it as a wargamer. So anyway, yeah, that's fair. That you could abstract it out or pick small scale actions. I could see ASL Goose Green being like a scenario pack or something. They wouldn't release a whole product with only 6 scenarios in it, I suppose. Not this kind of thing, I don't think. You'd get a huge module about it. I don't know. But yeah, Marty is right. This is going to be a problem. I mean, this is true, but we don't know what the numbers are, right? One would think that sales of... A lot of people say this, right? MMP makes all their money off the people who just buy everything. And I am positive that is a substantial factor, okay? At the same time, it seems to me that if that were the case, they would never reprint the rulebook or Beyond Valor or Yanks or anything like that, because all those people have probably multiple copies of it already and don't need it, and will be buying those products at a very low rate as they need replacement counter sheets or boards or whatever. So I think this can't be true to the extent that people would assume. Let me put it that way. This is Jeff is our comedian of the evening, apparently. This is the worst idea I've heard. This is worse than any of my ideas from this week. All right, so per head of Renegade at Gam Expo last week. And Brant talked to the guy. We talked about this. Squad leader news announcement likely in 2025. No product before mid-2026. Okay, I mean, if there's this is not in any way a particular criticism of Renegade in this matter, right? I'm just saying, okay, cool, they might be doing something interesting. Show it to me, and then I might become interested. So, or at least interested in covering it or yelling about it, But right now, there's nothing to talk about, so I just don't see much point in spending as much time as we have just spent talking about this. All right, so Purging the Collection, the Great Winnowing. So I actually went through this. This was my strategy for thinking about this. I went through. I am massively overcommitted in terms of time. Right? It's the channel and this, the CSRs and the house, and it's everything. Right? In addition to working and having, being happily married and all that stuff, I need to free up time. Or at least I need to be more deliberate about my calendar, right? So with that in mind, there just is stuff I'm realistically not going to play, and I've already gotten what I needed out of it if I wanted to look at it for research purposes, which I do buy a fair number of things for that. So I started thinking about what can go. And so I went down with a little notebook and looked at all the shelves and I came up with a list of about one shelf's worth of games that I can get rid of. Granted, it's a big shelf. It's probably as long as both of those, but that's basically it. And what I did was I stacked them all on the side table in the game room, and I'm going to stare at it for like a month, and then I'll consider whether any of those games can actually go or not. So I definitely didn't get rid of many series games unless I dumped the whole. Unless nothing's been dumped right now, and you folks will be the first to know if anything is actually getting dumped. Right now, there's a pile of games being considered for this status at this time. So by what criteria, other than I just don't think I'm going to ever play this, even as a solitaire exercise. And there's also stupid stuff that I have. Why do I have a copy of Victory Games Pacific War? I have GMT's version. Why do I have their version of Vietnam 65 to 75? I have the GMT version. Those are nicer. So I can get rid of those. These aren't big money things, but they will free up some space, which would be nice. So, but I tended not to even think about most of the series that I'm into. And like I said, nothing is actually going to get dumped yet, but something will get dumped. And if it turns out to be that much, middle value stuff, then it might get run up to Noble Knight. Right. By the way, the official sponsor of the Counter Clipping Show. I forgot it during the news thing, so I will mention that we do have the campaign for Decision's updated version of War in Europe. I have the original. I do not have the Decision update. And from what I understand, it looks like a solid update. So we are working our way towards it. We have not gotten a new report from Noble Knight since we launched this thing, but there's an affiliate link in the video description. If you're going to buy stuff from Noble Knight anyway, because they probably have what you're looking for, then go ahead and use that affiliate link, and I will get a little bit of kickback in the form of store credit, and when it pals up to about $650 or so, which is what the one that they have right now costs, we will push the button, and I will show it off on the show, and hopefully do video at least talking about it. So, pull that down, get some water. I feel very thirsty right now. I will confess, however, that might be because this one is not the first one. So, because I really like this particular scotch. So, so how do we make those decisions, right? Where is the line? Clearly, if you're not going to play it, and you don't want it as just like a showpiece or a collection piece or whatever, then there's no sense in keeping it. I'm sure we've all gotten rid of games in the past. There you go. Carl Crater from the Wargame Bootcamp, thank you so much for the support. It is much appreciated. Carl boxed up 200 games to ship to Noble Knight. I will not be getting rid of 200 games, but he has a lot more to consider. He will just let Noble Knight store credit cover everything he misses in the future. And they'll give you more in store credit, but a lot of times, well, I'm speaking for Noble Knight in a business manner, and I don't want to do that. But I was happy with what they gave me with the stuff we took up back in September or whenever that was. So, it'd be cool to have the money too, but let's be honest. When I have sold games sold games in the past, a lot of times that was to finance buying new games. So, that's probably not an awesome habit. right? Because, a bunch of stuff got rebought, for example. I now regret I didn't have that much Pathfinder stuff for first edition, but I got rid of a lot of it. I had a lot of the hardcovers. I didn't have that many modules or any of that. I had some, and I got rid of it all, and I shouldn't have done that. That stuff would be interesting to look through with what I'm working on right now. So, I mean, they're going to sell it. To be fair, they're going to sell it for more than they bought it for. They're in business, right? But I felt like, I mean, these numbers, you could figure this out, right? Because I said it online. We had a shrink wrapped, possibly slightly scuffed through the shrink. Maybe the shrink wrap was not perfect. Copy of Case Blue that was not mine. That somebody brought up with us. And they gave $500 cash for that, which I considered quite respectable. When they turned around to sell it, I think they wanted about $1,200 for it. And you know what? They got $1,200 for it. It wasn't there very long. So clearly, I would have been happy with the $500. And clearly, I mean, if I'm happy with that price, I say yes. If I'm not, I say no, right? And that's just a business decision. So, well, I mean, this is true, but this is kind of what I'm saying more politely. But they've got to do that. That's the model, right? But they want. This was not that copy. This was a later copy that came up. Because we knew when our copy came up because we had just driven away. So that was the next one in line, the shrink wrapped Case Blue, and that was like $1,200. I think. It might have been 2 copies later. I don't know, because Case Blue shows up at Noble Knight, and it never lasts long, no matter what the price is. So, as far as I'm concerned, they're justified in charging this if they can sell it within 48 hours, which they always appear to be able to do. So, and I have bought the single most expensive cash out of pocket game I have ever bought was almost $500. And that was Second Front, Europa's Second Front. And I bought it from Noble Knight, even though I probably could have saved $100 or $150 sitting on eBay, waiting 8 months to, jump on the right deal and we actually win the auction. And I ended up buying it from Noble Knight because I knew that if there was a problem, the publisher can't fix it, but Noble Knight will. So for a purchase that expensive, that seemed to be the right move for me. So. Now, you are not obligated to sell your stuff to Noble Knight if you are not happy with the price they offer you. That is your right as the owner to just say, nope, I think I want more than that. And to be honest, if you are going to sell, if you're going to sell 3 things that are going to get you like $800 a piece, then you are better off just doing it yourself, right? You could use eBay, you could use any of the marketplace groups on Facebook, whatever. You're better off selling it yourself. You'll get a better return. However, if you have 400 things that you need to sell, then you are probably talking about 6 months worth of work part-time, right? To unload. That's how long I feel like it would take me to unload that volume of stuff. Because I've shipped like 30 or 40 packages in a week before for, last time I had a big sale. And it took me like probably 30 hours that week to get all that done between tracking everything and making sure the right thing was going to the right person, and making sure everybody was paid and nobody was pissed. Somebody was pissed one of those times. All that was, labor, right? So if I am perhaps paying Noble Knight a commission, in a sense, to take care of all that stuff, which they are well equipped to deal with because they have procedures and tools and all that stuff to do it, where I don't, right? I'm just, I got my workbench in the other room here, and I cleared off and boxed the packages up there. They've got, big dispensers of packing material and all that stuff. So, and you are not obliged to sell to them and they'll be cool about it. If you say, you know what, I'm not okay with that price, maybe they'll make a counter offer. I don't know. I was pleased, having sold stuff to local game stores plenty of times. I was pleased with what they offered me. I did not attempt to dicker. So, in any case, All right. Now, I give stuff away. Byron, thanks for stopping by. Has given away 75% of 80/90 game collection over the past year. Yeah, you know what? I've given stuff away too. If a friend wants it, or if I think there's a better home for it, yeah, I have no compunctions about doing that at all. Then again, I don't really have anybody over to play war games, at least not regularly at this point. So, okay, so they will haggle if you want to haggle with them, and I would imagine a lot of people do. But it's an easy way if you want to just say, man, I just need this out of my hair. Talk to Noble Knight. They will pay for the shipping. They will make you an offer. You will literally just box it up and ship it up to them, and they pay the shipping, and everything is taken care of, and they send you money. So it is an easy way to unload that stuff without having to do it yourself. The warehouse is very large. I've worked in bigger warehouses, but these are industrial warehouses, not storing games. I would estimate, I have been inside, I don't know if this was the current Alliance warehouse, it's probably been 15 or 20 years. Probably maybe 25. When I went to an Alliance open house many years ago with a local game store, and we saw a sneak preview screening of the first episode of Smallville there, actually. But in any case, so I was in Alliance's warehouse, and I was working in a warehouse at the time for my real job. So I was curious, and I asked a bunch of not stupid questions, but like warehouse questions, not necessarily about the games, although I did gawk at that stuff too. And I would estimate that Alliance warehouse that I saw, I would estimate that somewhere between 8 and 12 of those would fit inside Noble Knight's warehouse. That is a complete from my backside guess, but the Alliance warehouse back at that time anyway was not nearly the size of Noble Knights. So you can do that too, or I mean, you could do this or eBay or whatever. I'd probably sell on the console marketplace over eBay personally, because I don't want to deal with eBay. Plus, they take a cut. Plus, then PayPal takes a cut. So I don't want to deal with all that. I know BGG takes a cut too, but I'm more comfortable giving it to them. They could use the money more than the people that own PayPal and eBay. So there you go. He knows a guy with a mid-sized collection. There you go. I've got a lot of magazine games, and none of them are on that table. Magazine games, once you've organized them, and even if you don't, they're relatively compact to store. Now, I get the urge to collect, right? You got to get all the numbered ones. And I'll tell you what, when you start seeing there's numbers on the spines and you have to have all the numbers, like with the Hollandspiel games, that's a problem for my personality type. I've managed to not, but it's, I'm like, nah. Now, this is true, too. Up to and including sending a semi to get them. That has happened more than once. So, and yes, they told us that. So, that's probably more of an estate sale situation, but there you go. That's a good idea, too. Or if there's a club, you can dump games at a club, local club, or sometimes a game store. I wouldn't, I don't know. I could see people making a donation like that to the store's table library. I think that'd be cool. I feel like the store ought to do that themselves though, too, Yeah, and you could get store credit. I didn't even ask about store credit. I wanted the cash. I think I got like a part store credit and part cash. I think I wanted some cash, and I was happy to take the rest of the store credit. I mean, it's absurd. Remember that in the case of Case Blue, which is not on the table, and indeed none of the OCS games, and there might be one or two MMP things on that table, but they're not in any of the series that I play or are active with MMP right now. Case Blue is it's been out of print for a while. They didn't really print that many when it was in print, and it is unlikely to be reprinted. A lot of people actually have played it, so like pristine copies are really quite hard to get. And it is enormous. So yeah, if that's all of those things are driving prices up. All of those things are also driving prices up on Campaign for North Africa, and indeed the other SPI titles as well. It's just that Campaign for North Africa got the big boost from the Big Bang Theory. All right, now I'm backed up on the chat. Bad. Is it not quite time for a word from our sponsor, Noble Knight? All right, so David Zell had a list of 12 war games he sent to Noble Knight for possible trade. Ended up trading 7 of the 12 and passed on their offers for 5 of them, including $35 for mint copy of Blitzkrieg Legend. Blitzkrieg Legend doesn't go for a ton of money. That's not a ton of money, but that's not what half-price books will give you for it either. But again, it is if you are not comfortable with what they offer for a specific game, and they will give you an itemized list, then you just say no, and okay, we get it, no problem. Or try and bargain with them. They might turn it up a notch. I have not. No. This is the thing is this is printed by Blue Panther, so I will buy it at Buckeye Game Fest, where Blue Panther, I am told, will be a vendor again. So I will typically, since that situation began, I stopped really mail ordering them because I know I'm going to see them at a couple conventions every year now. So. No, they did not do this. We paid for the gas. You know what though? It's only like an 8-hour drive from like Akron, Ohio. So because like the final departure point was here, so it only took about 8 hours. So it wasn't that bad, and we stopped a couple of times. We made excellent time, and we did hit Chicago pretty late at night. So that is a bonus in that case. I think I think a reprint of Case Blue is incredibly unlikely. What I do think is possible, although I know of nobody actually working on such a thing, and if Carl knows something different, cool. But I think he probably doesn't either. I suspect it might get redone before it's sort of reimagined, possibly as a series of smaller games, before they'll reprint another game that size. Reprint, right? Yeah, I'm not an expert on reprinting. I will defer to MMP's decision on this. It's unlikely to get reprinted. So, Blue Panther is not coming to BGF. Well, that's bullshit. That's unfortunate, but I will see them at WBC then. So it's all good. Maybe I'll blow WBC off this year. I don't know. If I do, then I'll just order stuff from Hollenspiel and probably from Blue Panther, to be honest. So I am interested in Endurance, though. It looks very interesting. Well, yeah, but MMP has always pushed back on this, and the reasons for that have not been obvious to me, but that because there aren't reasons that are obvious to me does not mean there are no reasons. So, again, they are going to be much more in tune with the actual numbers that MMP has to look at, right? I don't know what their internal details or structure are. So I don't have the information I would need to even make that decision. It sounds like a good idea, but I don't know what factors go into that. And remember, MMP handles pre-ordering quite differently than GMT. GMT does pre-orders the way that whoever it was describing. MMP doesn't do that. MMP, if it goes on pre-order, it's basically very close to just ready to go. So, and there's things I like about the way they do it, and there's things I like about the way GMT does it. And GMT, I think you get more forward visibility, and that's nice. But with MMP, the game's pretty much ready, and they're going to continue to polish it for whatever the pre-order period is. And you're going to get a quite polished product out of the end process in almost every case that I have. So Did they reprint DAC 2? I mean, or are we talking about DAC 2 as a reprint of DAC 1? Because DAC 2 does update stuff from DAC 1. And it is a monster niche game, as Robert Lane points out as well. So, BGF is Buckeye Game Fest in Columbus, Ohio. And this year, it is the last week of April. So, well, that's not convenient. Charles, were you at San Diego HistCon? Because if so, I feel stupid for not knowing that. Well, so here's the thing. They were actually playtesting they've been back and forth on this multiple times. First, it was going to be a Devil's Cauldron reprint, and it was just going to incorporate the errata. And then it was going to be updated Devil's Cauldron for the 2.0 rules. And then it was going to be a giant monster thing containing both the Devil's Cauldron and Where Eagles Dare, updated to the 2.0 rules. And then that got canceled, and it was back to a straight reprint of Devil's Cauldron with errata. And now they're back to a GTS 2.0 version of the Devil's Cauldron under a new name. So they've been all over the place on this. So could they reprint it like the errata corrected version? Yes, but they apparently are not doing that again. So, and there was a playtest of this on the table at Winterfest. So, which I think was the first I had heard, or at least I recalled, that they were changing the name as well. So, purging. This not that kind of purging, John. There is no vomitorium here. Well, in any case, maybe the name won't change, but I would like to see it reprinted, but I'm happy to buy it regardless, right? So anyway, one of the things that I think is probably going, and so let me also say that I don't necessarily think that because I have decided to get rid of a game, in a hypothetical case, that I necessarily think it's a bad game. It may be a game that I think I might play again, but I don't really feel like I need to own. I am happy to play it if the opportunity arises. I have plenty of games that I would just, want to play a game? Cool, here's Case Blue. Or whatever, right? I have plenty of games like that, but there's also plenty of things I will play, but I don't necessarily need to own them. I said that with Commands and Colors Medieval, and the Samurai thing. I'd play those. That's cool, but I don't have to have those. So that's another thing is there's a lot of opportunities to play without necessarily owning the games. It does mean that you have to have people in contact with you somewhere, whether it's locally or at a convention or at a game store or whatever. But that's an option. There's also Vassal. I've always said that if one of the players in the game owns the game itself, it's cool, right? So I can actually see DAC as I'm gonna close this because I really wish these were smaller. I'm going to say that DAC 2 might be, other than the fact that it's large and expensive, might be a very good entry point game for OCS, right? Because as Charles pointed out, the unit density is not that high. There are a bunch of scenarios in it, so you don't have to play the whole thing. You can kind of leave the Alexandria map off, to my understanding. So you can, I could put it on my table, for example, which would be useful. So it's got a lot of virtues as far as that goes, and it doesn't leave out important parts of the rules like supply, right? Now, see, I have not seen Joe say this, but that does not mean he has not. Joe's library looks impressive. I can agree with that. All right, Doug, thanks for stopping by. Given how little of a standalone game Where Eagles Dare is, other than the number of maps, I'd like to see. I think Where Eagles Dare is a pretty good standalone game, but there's really only there's one scenario. Well, I guess there's two scenarios. but the scenario is big, and then there's the campaign, and the whole thing has a weird footprint that's going to be very hard to fit on any reasonable table that's smaller than a pool table, or a ping pong table at least, unless you build something to fit it. So it's a very inconvenient standalone package in a lot of ways. Okay, what did we say SF3D was? I missed this. Did I miss this? Apparently, I missed this. Anyway, we're going to just have missed it. I keep mine in a spreadsheet, Joe, so I know more or less what I have to, I could look it up if I needed to. I don't know what it is right this minute. I haven't put the at least a couple of recent arrivals in here, but I'll give you a number. 624. That's actually. I wonder when I stopped updating this, because I think there's more actually. I would love to see the whole thing updated too. So I'm being clear. I personally would like to see the entire package updated to the version 2 rules. If that turns out to be an uneconomical thing for MMP to do, I would understand that decision. Right. So, so there you go. I would be curious to see what the number is. Joe, you must report back. I should put out a special ops to expand scenarios for Regal Steer. I think there was talk about this, or they could appear in the GTS magazine. That might actually be the right answer at this point. I think they are planning on doing more of those, I thought. No extenders in Deck 2? That might be okay. I'd have to think about that a little harder. So even so, you're certainly going to learn the trace supply by heart in that game. Because, it's not Beyond the Rhine where there's friggin' roads everywhere. So... All right. Mike Reed says, one could argue Market Garden was impacted more by the blowing of the Zahn Bridge on the Wriggles Dare maps than at Arnhem. I would agree with this. Oh, by the way, Chad Kennedy, thank you for the support. I don't think I said that. Mike Reed, I think I agree with this. The situation of Wriggles Dare is not really the problem. It's kind of the way that the game is structured for gameplay purposes. If there were more scenarios that allowed you to manage the table space a little more efficiently, I think it would be less of a problem. And the game could use more scenarios. So those are the issues. All right. Jeff Beeler asks, if I have the GRD, I'll assume this is addressed to me and answer it as such. If I have the GRD updates, do I get rid of the GDW versions of Europa games like Case Wait, Marina Mercure, Western Desert, etc.? I had some Europa stuff way back in the day, and I got rid of it all, and only relatively recently in the last, say, 5 or 6 years have started reacquiring Europa stuff. And I just avoided any... At this point, the landscape is clear because there will be no more Europa product coming out. And I have a list that I can work from. So I just picked wherever there was a GRD product, I picked the GRD product. And really the only thing that they didn't redo is Fire in the East and Scorched Earth, and I have those. And the Urals, but who cares about the Urals? That's the most useless expansion in the history of wargaming. I think, well, it would be nice to be the kind of game, I've said this a million times, it would be nice to be the kind of gamer who could just say, you know what, ASL is the game for me, and just play ASL. I am unfortunately not that guy. So I don't even think I could commit to this. And this is a much more reasonable proposition than I just laid down. So, yeah, so I didn't have anything to purge from the earlier Europa games. I rebought everything from the ground up. I just picked the GRD stuff. I don't have Total War, although I do have the maps. And I will eventually do something with the maps, which probably looks like a redesign of Europa. But we'll see. That might be another retirement project. All right, so shockingly, we are actually caught up on the chat. Well, this is one of the things that they were talking about with this ASL tournament. Was like free, for a year or a lifetime in some cases, depending on how high you got it. On the prize you win, boy, that could potentially be a lot of stuff, right? Particularly if in the next 12 months, if the schedule that we just read off, if all that stuff actually comes out in the next 12 months, then that's quite a bit of stuff. So the ASL folks will buy it, no doubt about that. I don't know what the numbers are on any of their pre-orders at the moment, and I'm not checking. So, at some point, there's also regret purges too, right? Maybe this is not a purge. Maybe you don't wait for a purge to get rid of a game like this. You do something about trading it away. Patty Rafesky, thanks for stopping by. Maybe you get. This is fair. We should get back to the bingo cards. Actually, I didn't do it enough to make a habit of doing it, so it kind of drifted away from the bingo cards. But there's also sometimes you buy a game and it just is not what you thought it was going to be, right? That happens. Can I think of a war game that I think that I've bought recently? Probably not, but I do tend to do a fair amount of digging before I actually push the button on something. So, which is not to say I'm not an impulse buyer, but I'm an impulse researcher. And then I will push the button at the end if I decide that this is something that's going to make sense. Sometimes I say, nah, this looked interesting, but I think it's not for me. And, you make the same decisions, presumably, too. So, I mean, this is true, right? So there's a funny story. I want to say, it's never happened again with this particular title. I think the thing that I have bought, sold, bought it again, sold it again, bought, sold it again, bought it again, the most for like one single product line, I'm reasonably sure is Ars Magica. I think it's 4 times where I bought it, said, this is awesome, nobody wants to play it. Got rid of it. New edition came out. Bought another one. This is awesome. Talks to people into playing it, but they really weren't into it. Sold it again. And then I, was badgering the regular game group that I was gaming with for like 20 years to play it. No, it sounds stupid. I don't know. And they finally, I talked them into it after years of badgering, and they loved it. And that's the set we have now. We loved it so much that we were in the playtest group for the 5th edition. So, critical shit. Nice. All right. So Critical had dabbled into the modern era and the Civil War era and other eras. This is, I mean, I don't know if it's difficult to get now. At least if it's like a current product, you could just order it from them and look at their website on MySpace or wherever it is. But their website is exceptionally primitive. Their rep is notorious. Well, I watch a lot of YouTube wargaming video too. So there's that. This is true. That's the retirement plan, is the game collection, and just okay, you got to do the research, woman. But here it is. This is the retirement. Another thing that happens is a great question, Jeff Beeler. Oh no, so I will totally do this. I have bought a substantial amount of games, Frank, and some of them are your fault, in fact, for research purposes, just to see what the model looks like. I have gotten to very little of that research, but I have picked up a bunch of things. And if you think about it, 150 games is a lot of games, right? I mean, I remember back in the day, we'll get back to Jeff Beeler's question in a minute here. I remember back in the day when we had like that little tiny book, the kids' bookcase that had the 3 shelves, and it was particle board. And if you filled up like one of those shelves, it was like, oh my goodness, look at the awesomeness of this collection. To what I imagine a lot of kids felt like that. And to what extent a collector compulsion drives us as a result of feeling that way as a kid. That is entirely plausible. All right. So I have done, I've done it all. You could sell to local game stores. You will generally get friggin' peanuts. And I strongly recommend against doing it for half-price books because they will give you peanuts, like pennies on the dollar, and then sell it for the same price that they see at Noble Knight. So Noble Knight will give you a reasonable percentage of that number. Half-price books will not. I'm sorry, half-price crooks. So Enterprise will buy used games from folks, and a lot of those the bigger. Trying to think of somebody else. I don't know if like the big game stores will buy used stuff, like your Gamer's Armory or your Complete Strategist or whatever, because I've never been to any of those places. But Noble Knight will. I've been there. I've also made private deals at conventions too, right? Where it was just now, some conventions you have to observe the letter of the law on this too. Like if you do that at Origins, you will get in trouble, and possibly up to and including getting your ass kicked out. So you got to be real careful about that. But if you are trading, no problem. And that's one of the reasons that motivated the math trade type thing too, because none of the really big conventions that draw tens of thousands of people will allow people to like sell stuff outside the dealer's room because that's where they make money. Those people paid to be in there, right? At one point, I was thinking about basically dumping most of the solitaire games, and I did dump some solitaire games. It was not anything like all of the solitaire games. You can also sell on eBay, right? And you might. So here's the thing: eBay today seems to me to be dominated by professional sellers who are operating some form of business, right? And they are setting a price, and that is what it is going for. That is less true for like hobby markets like war games and RPGs, but you still see a lot of that, right? You'll see the folks in Atlanta, whatever that place is called, Enterprise and Noble Knight all sell on eBay. It's part of their, it's part of their business. That's not a problem for them, but it makes it harder for me to sell something on eBay. I feel like. On the other hand, maybe I would, say that seems like a crazy price to me, and then knock mine off 20% and sell it for that. I don't know. That might work. I haven't sold anything on eBay for a long time. Enterprise does go to some conventions, and so does Noble Knight. Noble Knight goes to, I believe, Gary Con, and there's something else up in Wisconsin that they go to as well. It's going to be a grim Gary Con again this year. I guess this... Okay, yeah, this did happen after the last show. Quick news item, and then we will get to... that I forgot about until now. Sorry. And then we'll get to the Noble Knight message, is that Ernie Gygax, also known as E. Gary Gygax Jr., eldest son of Gary Gygax, co-inventor of Dungeons & Dragons, passed away earlier this week. This news was posted by his sister-in-law, I believe, and Ernie looked great in the last few photos we saw of him. Looked like a lot better than he had in the past. So I was, he had been having health problems for a long time, so... vibes out to Luke and the rest of the Gygax family on this unexpected loss. I don't know how unexpected it was. Grey Rooster, I don't know if they do any game buying. They're not a bad place to buy stuff. I've never bought anything from... I think I have bought something from Wayne's Books, but it was not a gaming item. I think it was just a book item. So Godspeed, Ernie. Ernie got caught up in the new TSR fiasco, and I really think that in that situation, I don't know, I'm speculating here, but that's the show, is hearing me blab. I do think that Ernie was kind of the patsy in that situation. I think he was, they gave him, they paid him for his name, and boy, they made him look bad. So in any case, I believe it is Gamehole Con that Noble Knight does. And speaking of Noble Knight, let us have a brief message from our official. I got to take this down first. From our official sponsor, the very fine folks at Noble Knight Games. Take it away.
Here at Noble Knight Games, we've been carefully growing the world's largest selection of board games, role-playing games and dice, war games, miniatures and paints, card games, and more. Going on 25 years now. Our rustic castle contains more game and hobby goodness than you can shake a stick at. Complete with careful packaging and the finest customer service the land can provide. You can buy, sell, trade from anywhere in the world, just like nature intended. Noble Knight Games.
Thank you, Noble Knight, for being the official sponsor of the Counterclipping Show. So when we drove away, I wouldn't have been stunned. Like I said, I don't want to give you a number for reasons, but I was happy with what they offered me, and I took up some, 10, 20% of it in cash and the rest of it in store credit. It wouldn't have shocked me had I walked out of the store with 0 store credit after that transaction. And that is not what happened. I actually spent a quite responsible amount of it, but the campaign we were doing at the time was for the SPI soapboxes, and I got 2 of them, or at least one of them there. So I was pleased with that, and then that some of that store credit carried over into the following campaign. Incidentally, I don't know how visible this is. I think it's not. I think it's quite hard to see if I'm not wearing my glasses. I had surgery to remove a little thing right here. I should actually face the correct way, and there is a little bruising. It was a very quick and trivial surgery. There is a little bruising. It looks a little like I'm wearing eyeshadow, but there's also a shadow over here that is kind of hiding it. So, what I've seen at Wayne's Books happen more often is Traveler stuff. Actually, they apparently the guy who runs Wayne's Books, Wayne presumably, seems to be a Traveler fan, and they have a fair amount of Traveler stuff. This is. I don't know how much bloat you have, Doug, but I do have some bloat, and it's got to get thinned. A nice goal that I'm not sure I will get to in this round is to get everything back into the game room, because right now there are 2 shelving units out in the main room and here in the basement that have war games on them, and I would like that to not be the case. I don't think I'm going to get there with what I'm currently considering getting rid of. Let me put it that way. And I'll tell you, there's not much GMT in that pile, but that's because I kind of did a GMT purge with the last round of stuff, so it felt unnecessary. Oh, nice. Dak, and hey, there was a case blue. I wonder what that went for. $600. Okay. So yeah, this was, folks, sometimes the Ardwulf Lair Discord server brings to your attention certain deals that might appear. So Goodwill Seattle was selling 2 copies, punched and somewhat worn, but not disastrously worn, 2 copies of Case Blue in one lot. It went for $600. These are both punched copies. Who knows if they're complete? It says not certified complete. But if you would have been able to get this for, maybe it's complete. Now, to 2 copies, you could probably get one complete copy. So if anybody here bought that, let me know, because my copy's missing some stuff. Yeah, I think this is true. I've never installed. I'm always really resistant to installing apps for every fucking thing on my phone. I am starting to become a cranky old man, literally just in the last month or 2. So if my wife is watching the show right now, she is laughing hysterically in her office, which is right there. So, because she can hear me. So I'm not anti-app, but in general, but for security reasons and just, man, I don't have the mental bandwidth to deal with all these friggin' apps. So, Brant, how do you now? Yeah. So, well, I've got a rhythm to handling the store credit at Noble Knight. So there's that. It depends. If I buy from Noble Knight, I'll typically buy unpunched, if at all possible. Now, the copy of Bloodreef Tarawa is punched, but I'm not that worried about it for the obvious reason, because unless it's a counter specific to Bloodreef Tarawa, who cares? And most of it's clearly there. So and I didn't want it to resell it, so it's cool. And yes, there's no ASL and in general very little MMP on that consideration table. So, Brant, I'm thinking of going back up sometime this year. It'll be after July, I can tell you that. So, I only have one work app installed on my phone. I have resisted putting my work email on the phone because, frankly, a lot of the email traffic we get at work is bullshit. Just assorted newsletters and stuff that nobody reads. So, well, you don't have to deal with store credit with Noble Knight. I mean, they'll give you cash. They'll give you two numbers. They'll give you a cash number and then a somewhat higher store credit number. So now, if as far as me selling stuff, I'm not even saying that I would sell it to Noble Knight, or that. Let me put it in a different way. I would consider that there is no actual plan here, other than that I'm going to kind of walk past this side table out here and stare at these games every day for the next couple of weeks, and then think about what I really want to get rid of and what I really want to hang on to, at least for now. So I expect that, I've said before, I'm not sure there will be retirement by the time I get to retire. So I'm still at least 10 years away from it, realistically. So latest subscriber Guy Manstyle. Thank you, Guy Manstyle, who presumably uses or perhaps is a model for the Man Mower, which I somehow got ads for again. Robert Lane says he's going to finish up his current game and then focus on the Victory Games Fleet series for the rest of the year. I'll tell you what, I am generally speaking very lukewarm on that. Let me be clear. On the NATO versus Warsaw Pact thing, right? I have a decent number of games on the topic. I am pleased with the number of games I have on the topic. The Victory Games Fleet series looks really friggin' cool, and I would love to check it out. I will, at this point, wait for Compass's eventual reprint to do that. So, just because I don't particularly want to expend the necessary effort to run the stuff down. Now, on the other hand, maybe one will pop up at Noble Knight, and that could be a thing. So, Mandarin Mike buys from them every month, and I'm sure Noble Knight appreciates it. Hopefully you're using my affiliate link. Noble Knight is we actually asked this question. They are able to rely on their own internal data sometimes, a lot of the time, let me put it that way. Sometimes something crazy will come up that they have never had before, but they have had a lot of crazy stuff, including like playtest drafts and things like internal, memoranda from game publishers and stuff. So they've had a lot. In many cases, they're able to just look it up in their own database and see what the sale history is, and maybe that's even automatically calculated for them. I don't know. I feel like I have seen them make a fat finger on putting something in. Somebody posted something somewhere that was like, "Oh, look at this price. This was absolutely crazy." And I went and looked at it, and I'm like, maybe that was Decision actually. And it was like, yeah, clearly this is a typo. And then when I looked at it again, like an hour later on my phone, it had been corrected. So that kind of thing does happen still. But I don't know the detail, and I am reasonably sure it's not a secret AI algorithm. I think it's a guy, probably his name is Floyd, and Floyd determines what it's going to be by looking things up in their database. I'm sure they have some kind, well, let me put it this way. I would think that they have some kind of graphical presentation of metrics. So if I end up doing like a game Purge sale like I did several years ago, What I would be inclined to do is to say, take the last 3 BGG marketplace prices, average them, and then see where that is, and then probably go just a little bit lower than that. That's how I would price stuff. I have no illusions that Noble Knight is doing that, because they are a business and I'm selling shit I don't have room for. So they can look at their own data, what they are able to sell it for, right? And frankly, I could sell the last batch of stuff I sold. I could have sold for more than I got for it, but that wasn't the point. I like money as much as the next person. Don't get me wrong, but I also am cognizant of my own willingness to deal with the large amount of work that it is to actually dump a bunch of games like that. So, something I have seen. This is a good question by Brent. Does anyone purge PDFs? Or if it's digital, it never goes away. This would apply mostly to RPG products, but I have a fair amount of RPG products in PDF and a pretty good drive-through RPG library. What does happen quite a bit for me, I don't know quite a bit, but this does happen from time to time, is I'll be looking at my drive-through RPG library and I'll say, I'm pretty sure I never downloaded that, and I'll download it again, and then I'll stick it in an incoming folder, and then a month later I'll start picking through that, and I'll see that, yes, I in fact have this already. So like deleting duplicates and other bullshit, and I will sometimes go through like everything and rename everything in a consistent style so that I know what it is and I don't have to rely on the code that the file name might be from drive-through. So fortunately, Phil, what do you need? But no, this will not be going anywhere. None of the, and in fact, none of the Avalon Hill stuff is on that table either. In general, not just GCACW, but any Avalon Hill. And thinking about it, there's probably a couple of Avalon Hill things in there that I probably could dump. Maybe I'll think about it. So I will let you know, but that's probably getting buried with me as far as I'm concerned. I don't know. I guess you should, I guess. I don't know. This is a great question, though. I don't want to sound dismissive of this from a legal perspective. This is like a real question. Talk to a lawyer. I don't know. I keep everything in cloud, all this stuff, not everything, but I keep this stuff specifically in cloud storage so I can access it on my phone or on a tablet or on the computer or wherever. So I just sign into OneDrive, and there I am with all the files, or at least the ability to download any of the files wherever. So what do I have on the table? I still have Army Group Center on the table, but I need to fix that because it is. I'm gonna play the scenario that I set up, but I'm not gonna play the campaign, and that will clear most of the table. So. All right. Vlad says, Noble Knight, you can pre-order stuff through Noble Knight too, I will point out. That is a service that they do have and will get you a little bit of extra discount. And in some scenarios, I'm sure that is a good option that makes sense. Vlad says that they have a link to their rare and unusual items for sale. Looks like the most expensive is the original Shadowrun logo artwork is going for $29,995. They have that hanging on the wall right now. And that is, I don't know that I've looked at that page. I didn't know that was for sale. Another thing that they have hanging on the wall is the original Errol Otis cover painting from Deities and Demigods. But I was told explicitly that is not for sale. The full-life stand-up mannequin of Drizzt, I think, is for sale. I didn't check the price because my wife would have fucking murdered me if I had brought that into our home. So, you get that creepy-ass thing out of here! After the gunshots, that's what you would hear. So here's my position. I have this exact same position I do with Wargame rulebooks on this. For reading, I strongly prefer using the digital copy. At the table, I strongly prefer having the physical copy. Just for reading, I'll take the digital any time. Now, if you're looking at your PDFs on your phone, or maybe not that optimal without you doing this, right? So I can see that, but I do have a decent size, not huge, but I do have a decent sized tablet to do that stuff on. So, and that's why I have that tablet, frankly. Victory Games NATO. I really do like the Compass Games Designer Signature Edition. Was it? Okay. I think Brant might have checked the price on that. I was like, yeah, I don't need that. Wow. Wow. That would have been an amazing deal, huh? Keith Rocco, for those who don't know, is a really great artist. He has done cover work inside War. I think somebody like Multiman, who has used his cover art on games, I think they are licensing the rights to an existing painting. I don't believe it is painted to their demand. I don't think. Maybe. Who knows? But it's really nice work. Now, I strongly favor when you buy the physical product, you get the PDF version for free. Strongly favor that, and that is, generally speaking, why I generally buy direct from Mongoose and Chaosium, because both of them just do that. You buy the product, you get the PDF, and I'm pretty sure both of them, if you buy the product at the game store, and you can give them a receipt or something, I would want some kind of verification. I think that they will also supply you with the PDF. So. Now, that's another thing, is sometimes you can get on Humble Bundle. So right now, there is a really good RuneQuest bundle, which is basically $18 for the entire product line as far at a glance of the current RuneQuest line from Chaosium, and it's incredibly inexpensive. There's also a Pathfinder Kingmaker bundle, which has a ton of stuff in it, including a bunch of core Pathfinder 2nd edition stuff. So... this is true. I will tell you that, it's significantly revised too on the NATO. So Bruce Maxwell, the designer, pretty much took a complete second look at it, updated his research, all that stuff, redesigned some of the core systems. We have played it a couple of times now, and it's a very strong game. I will vouch for this game. It is strong. Does she actually have a life-size David Bowie in her basement? Oh, there you go. So hey, that was not a criticism. I think these covers look fantastic. So cool. And I have, from memory, without looking it up, the No Turning Back cover looked good. So this is kind of what I figured was the deal. But I don't know. I'm just an asshole with an opinion. Yeah, I'm not doing that. I have experimented with, and will probably continue to experiment with, playing indie RPGs. I have not a huge library of indie RPGs, but on the shelf that I'm looking at, I've got Spirited Century and some other Fate stuff. I've got, that's not real. That might be Cold City, actually. I've got some stuff down here, which is some Burning Empires, Burning Wheel, and Apocalypse World stuff. And there's some more somewhere else. And I have played a decent chunk of those with the Games on Demand folks at Origins. And I have no intention of stopping that, but I am not fundamentally an indie RPG guy. So I am happy to experiment and see how these mechanical tools work. I think that's interesting. But I am almost certainly never going to run anything in the indie space, with the possible exception of a number of Apocalypse World things, or Burning Wheel could happen, I guess. Although I feel like that's super unlikely now too. And how indie is that? Is it even? I don't even know if it's still around. So, but yeah, I can't just do the indie stuff. That's not going to work for me. There you go. That is that boxed set. There's an unboxing of it if you want to see it on the channel. That is a phenomenally packed, dense product. It really is nice. One of the things, so it's pretty typical for these kinds of starter kits nowadays to not include the character creation rules, because that saves potentially a ton of space. And the new Chaosium starter kits are like that, right? They give you a bunch of pre-gens, way more pre-gens than you need. But you don't get the character creation rules because in those systems it's pretty involved. The Traveler starter kit or starter set that they published that Mongoose did a couple years ago actually included the whole game system. Everything was in there. They didn't actually leave anything out, which I think is pretty cool. The current Pathfinder's beginner box is like that too. It does include some character generation rules because in that game you can get away with it. It's like, okay, here's what you need to do through 3rd level or whatever it covers. So you get away with that. But they only give you like 4 classes, and I think it's humans, elves, and dwarves, and maybe halflings. I'm not sure. So there's like not the whole system, but you could make characters out of it. All right, now I want to catch up here. It wasn't not my intention to talk about RPGs tonight, but here we are. I picked up the player and game master guides, which are basically just splitting the big book into 2 books. If you want to buy it that way, you can. I felt like it was I've been very close to running that as an actual campaign for more than once. Whenever I get the hankering to do Roll Master, that is what I am going to turn to. And that might happen. Yes, this is true. The RuneQuest screen contains... I gotta not touch that. The RuneQuest screen contains a large amount of supplementary material, I believe including at least 1 and maybe more than 1 adventure. There you go. There you go. I ran, as a couple of you know, I think we had 8 or 10 sessions spread out over probably 4 months. RuneQuest mini campaign. And I talked about this last night a little bit, and I felt like I felt a step behind on the mechanics. But I enjoyed the experience. So the Humble Bundle, that is a shit ton of material. And hold on. It was not my intention to talk about this evening, but here we are. Let's see what we have at the moment. The thing is, there's like a ton of stuff here. Apparently, I'm on the video game page. Well, we're not going to look it up. So, but yeah, it's a very nice deal. There you go. Starter kit number 4. Perfidious Albion. We are drinking one of my favorites. I'll gush about it again. Lecheg from sunny Tobermory. Reach of the Roach God for 1000 Islands RPG. I thought did they like do a full set of rules for the 1000 Islands thing? I thought that was just like a little series of individual islands you could like drop in wherever. That's the impression I had. I never really investigated that product line. Dragon Pass what? Oh, right. Yeah, the book from Chaosium. Pretty recently, yeah. I haven't picked up the latest thing. At this point, I'm probably just going to buy them out of Origins, to be honest. They will not sell out between now and June. All right, for RuneQuest, John Miller asks, for RuneQuest and Rollmaster players, did the complex combat rules prove a hindrance when trying to run combats with many combatants or with multiple combats per session? RuneQuest combat is... So... There is a distinction here because the RuneQuest combat system is fairly complicated. The Rollmaster combat system is fairly complicated. Neither... Rollmaster combat is simpler than the current edition of Dungeons & Dragons combat. Let me put it that way. There are less exceptions. You have an attack bonus and a defense bonus. You roll percentile dice. You want to get as high as possible. You add your offensive bonus and the defender's defensive bonus, and you look that number up on a table. That's it. That's the mechanic. It's not that complicated. Rollmaster has more complexity in the character creation system, and even in standard system, which massively bloated the skill system, really didn't bloat the combat system very much at all. RuneQuest, I think, is a little more complicated, and I don't want to say less intuitive because I played Rollmaster for a decade. So it comes very intuitively to me. And I was able, for a lot of that time, to think in Rollmaster, if you know what I'm saying. I have not reached that point with RuneQuest. bluntly. I just have not. All right, Stuart recently read the article on TTRPGs in Korea from Rascal News and now browsing Korean RPGs that you can't read, but they look super cool. I have not really even tried to investigate RPGs not published in English, and I'm not sure whether that stuff would be published in English or not. This is true. I didn't say there wasn't a lot of bookkeeping. There is, but bookkeeping is not the same thing as complexity, right? You might dislike both. That's a completely reasonable thing to say, but they are separate things. Now I get wanting to support interesting, independently published things, and I am completely comfortable never giving Wizards of the Coast another fucking nickel. But it's easy that's not a boycott. I wasn't buying their stuff anyway. I do have a decent amount, not a shit ton, of 5th edition stuff. I have about that much. I'm going to give you an actual inches. I have what I would estimate to be about 9 inches of shelf of 5th edition D&D stuff. And that does include a starter set and the slipcase set of the 3 main books. But I do have the fancy one, and that's going for a decent chunk of change. That might go away. The only real reason I can justify having D&D stuff is for reference or nostalgia. So now it does matter which version of Rolemaster you're talking about too. I'm not sure. I haven't looked closely enough at the new Rolemaster Unified to have an intelligent opinion on it. But I also there's a huge difference in complexity between Rolemaster Standard System and the Rolemaster 2 derived games, like the older versions of Rolemaster and Rolemaster Classic. And particularly in terms of character creation, where it adds a lot of additional variables and a lot of additional decisions to make, and just a shit ton of skills. It's way too many skills. The number of skills in a standard system is completely unreasonable, in my opinion. So, I have no desire to do this. So I do not require that my nostalgic appreciation for the older stuff or some of the modules that I either have reacquired or still have that I played back as a kid. I don't have a requirement that I actually experience that nostalgia by trying to play it again. I am happy to gaze through it periodically in nostalgia and just savoring it, but I don't feel like I need to I got plenty of stuff that I want to play, right? Thunder Rift. Oh, okay, I know the ones you're talking about. I had a super low opinion of these at the time. These are the big thick flat boxes. Am I right about that? Those actually, those we poo-pooed those back in the day when they were the latest thing. Look at this. It's obviously for imbeciles. But we didn't play D&D at the time either, so there's that. There is a fair amount of bookkeeping. You got to keep track of hits and bleeding and stun and a bunch of other things. Some of those things we would always house rule, like stun. We house ruled that stun simply does not stack. If you are currently stunned, you will not be more stunned with an additional stunned result. Because what that ends up in is you end up just dead 2 rounds later because you're stunned and you're never going to be unstunned. You're going to be dead before the stun wears off if it just keeps piling up. So don't think we didn't house rule the shit out of it. We also ignored a huge percentage of the experience system, which I think was a mistake, but it was also a tremendous amount of additional bookkeeping because you actually track experience. You don't just say, okay, you killed 3 orcs. They're each worth 50 experience. You actually keep track of the number of concussion hits that you did, the number of hit points of damage, and the level of the criticals that you did, and the level of criticals that you took, and the damage that you took, and if you died, you got like a bonus because you had a near-death experience. No, we did the combat experience, and there would be like adventure experience. And so we massively house ruled the way you got experience. And I think, John, that I suspect that most Rollmaster players, in fact, did not use the rules as written for experience. I do like the experience system presented in Harp. That is the only thing I like about Harp. I think that otherwise, Harp is an attempt to make Rollmaster both stupider and more complicated at the same time. I had a very negative reaction to it. So, anyway, getting off that topic. So yeah, we might, I might be purging 20 or 30 games out of 600. Maybe more will get stacked on that table. I don't know. Maybe no more will get stacked on that table. I don't know. Maybe the whole table will be, and I didn't rearrange any shelves because there's going to be traffic. So the only shelves, I did clear one shelf and about, it might be about 8 feet of shelf space total. And hey, if anybody likes Harp, that's cool. I just think it wasn't what I thought it was going to be or wanted. So the other thing was I did reorganize that one shelf so just to kind of see how much space I had cleared. And then I said, well, what if I put all this stuff back on that shelf? Because I decided I wasn't purging anything after all, which is a thing that could happen. Then I said, well, I could just like put them all back in a random order, just however they fit. And then I'm like, no, I can't do that. I cannot do that. That will not happen. So this would be, I guess 10 to 20%. Yeah, something like that. So not a huge purge. I mean, I'd keeping a lot of series that I got a lot of games in. Keeping all the OCS, all the Library of Napoleonic Battles, all the GCACW, all the GBACW, all the Blind Swords, all the BCS, OCS, Line of Battle, at least one other series from the gamers that I can't even remember at this point. But yeah, I do agree. Who asked? Dan Webb asks the question, if you want to dump 100 games at a time, it is up to you how much you want to work you want to put into that. It would take me 2 to 3, maybe even 4 weeks to sell 100 games individually, which would give me the best return. But it would also take me weeks to get all that stuff out the door. So I do not have a massive SCS collection. I do have almost everything for GTS too, though. So there's that. But I have everything for OCS, BCS, and Line of Battle. Let me put it that way. TCS, there's a few that I don't have, and truthfully, I might get rid of Omaha because I don't imagine playing it. It doesn't doesn't really showcase the order system that is, I think, the heart of TCS, and it's super antiquated looking at this point. And I kind of don't expect MMP to do the rumored part 2 at any point at this point. So Omaha might go, but I would not purge TCS as a whole. Civil War Brigade series, nope, that didn't go either. That is, well, it's not nothing's gone yet. That is on a consideration. Now, see, here's the thing. I have purged TCS before, and now I have a bunch of it again. So that's probably a sign that I should think about not getting rid of any more TCS games. Probably. The same thing has happened with Civil War Brigade, but I only had like 1, maybe 2 Civil War Brigade series games. Now I have 6 or 7 of them. So I have, I think, 3 or 4 SCS games, something like that. There's quite a few. If I could only keep one, I'm probably dying in the fire and going down with the ship. But you know, the smart move is if you can only grab one at a time, grab the most expensive thing in the room, which would probably be Campaign for North Africa. Pretty sure. So there's a wide variety of TCS topics. I do strongly prefer the newer counter style that they're doing now with TCS over the old one, and that has cooled me off on buying all of the old TCS games, but I do have most of them. So I don't know what the actual number is, but I do have most of them. Oh, God. So not in terms of cost, if we were not talking about cost, if I knew that it was the apocalypse and it was just going to be me in a blasted ruin with one war game for the rest of my life, it would probably be World in Flames. I'm still saying that, which is pretty good for me, actually. Because I know I could get a lifetime's worth of play out of World in Flames. And I couldn't carry all of the ASL product. I could carry all the World in Flames product. Iron Curtain. So I had Iron Curtain. This is another mild regret. I had Iron Curtain. I looked at it and I said, this is a really cool sort of toolkit, NATO versus Warsaw Pact toolkit. I really liked that, but at the same time, I'm not that interested in that topic. And the legend himself really wanted it. So I don't know if I gave it to him or traded it to him or what, but he ended up with that copy of Iron Curtain. Absolutely delicious. Yes. I have played it. It is really good. There are many complaints about World in Flames, and many of those are 100% justified. Nevertheless, I do find it extremely engaging. Omaha 2's in the works, so maybe I shouldn't get rid of it then. But I also don't like the old counter style either. So there's that. I'll tell you what, I could, in both of these cases, Mike Reed, I could see this as like a desert island game, either Pacific or Vietnam. I think both of those are. John, talk to me before you do that. I don't really need anything. Don't talk to me. I don't want to know. Either of these are deep, rich enough games to, I think, support a many years of dedicated play. So yeah, now if I had still had, I mean, don't think it never occurs to me that if I see a copy of like the old Squad Leader, whatever printing, I don't care, of Squad Leader, don't think I'm not sometimes tempted by the nostalgia of that, right? But I don't need it. I just don't need it. Would I, it's another one where, should I have bought the poster from Roger at the time? It's too late to do that now. That may continue to be an option, but I'm not positive. Perry, no. If we are talking about the Battle Commander or World War II Commander Market Garden, that is an entirely new thing. If it is the game I'm thinking, and I think it is. Perry, I fall on the side of World in Flames here. Others disagree, and I have World at War, but I haven't played it, so I don't feel comfortable having a particularly firm opinion on it. That said, I think there are reasons why I will end up preferring World in Flames, but part of that is because I have played it before, right? So yeah, so this is the trying not to touch it. So there is let me find it here. There is a game that you can buy on Steam, which is called friggin' something. There we go. It is called Battle of the Bulge. Can I share it? Apparently not. Or at least I don't see it, so you'll have to just look it up on Steam. It is called Battle of the Bulge. It's from... Let me give you the actual details, rather than me trying to remember it. Okay, that was annoying. All right, it is from Shenandoah Studios, published nowadays, at least, by Slytherin. It is a John Butterfield design. It was, I think, originally designed for mobile devices, but you can get it on Steam, and I've played it. It's very good. Right now, it is $2.49. That game, this Battle of the Bulge game, was turned into the World War II Commander board game by John for Compass as World War II Commander Battle of the Bulge. And Market Garden is volume 2 in that. There is no associated digital version. So that is the entire story on that. And like I said, I've played this Shenandoah Studios Bulge game. It's, it's a light war game that you could play while waiting in the waiting room at the dentist's office. And it is nevertheless engaging. So I was pretty happy with it. Also with Eric Lee Smith's Gettysburg the Tide Turns, same deal on that. That got turned into Battle Hymn, the Battle Hymn series from Compass. So John is busy at work right now, working on Away Team, I think, and the new version of Hell's Highway. I would imagine that'll be the case. And if there's something else in the cooker, I'm sure Marty knows about it, but he may or may not be able to actually say. Joe Perez preferred the old TCS counters because the symbology would have been closer. Well, this is true, and I believe that is in fact why they picked those symbols. But Wargamer, are not as familiar with those symbols. And I would just prefer to have icons or silhouettes or whatever. Yeah, I mean, so remember though, here's an important point, and I've made this point before too. So I'm going to pull this comment down because it's just too big. So you should not feel obligated to play with the supplementary material. This is a universal thing, and a lot of people, and I understand because I feel the same way a lot of the time, do not feel obligated to play with the supplementary material. If you think that the base game works great on its own, just play that. Don't use GI Anvil of Victory is really the one you'd be probably talking about. In Cross of Iron, it was not particularly out of control, although it did replace some systems, as I recall. So, but no, this applies to whatever games. If you want to play Crusader Kings and you don't want to buy all the DLC, don't buy all the DLC. There's nothing wrong with the game that they released. Well, I don't know if there's nothing wrong with it, but you know what I'm saying. And you can take advantage of all the subsequent quality of life updates that they have made. If you want to play D&D and just play out of the Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, and Monster Manual, do that. You don't have to play with all that supplementary material. Now, if you are in a play group that like a Pathfinder Society group or whatever the RPG equivalent is right now, there might be a social expectation that you are in fact going to allow all that supplementary material because Paizo and whoever it is wants to sell the product. That's not necessarily as a directive, but yeah, they want to encourage you to, make everything available. I would find that absolutely intolerable. And that is why I will never try to run Pathfinder Society stuff, because I don't want to deal with that. So we are good there. All right, Mike Reed says, going back to ASL, okay. After playing ASL for nearly 40 years, going back to SL is a non-starter. Best left is a high school memory, similar with ASL starter kit. Now, I have a considerable amount, not everything, but I have a considerable amount of starter kit stuff, and I am happy to play starter kit. But then again, I'm not playing regular ASL on any kind of regular basis right now. It is a goal in 2025 to actually play some ASL. And maybe I'll do that at Oktoberfest. That's possible. It is, after all, half an hour away. So that is a thing I could do. It might actually be a little farther than that, but might be a little closer too. Now that's another thing with World in Flames, right? There was the whole running joke. It's ships in flames, planes in flames, Africa in flames, Asia aflame. Everything is in flames, and including your money. You don't have to play with any of that stuff. That game works completely. This is why I was comfortable buying the classic collector's edition and then just buying the additional add-ons as I got the money. Because I would be perfectly happy playing with just the stuff in the main box, to be honest. If I had the extra stuff, well, I bought the extra stuff for a reason. So I'm willing to add extra stuff in a controlled way, but nobody should feel obligated for that. So excellent, Tim Zales. I should get a commission. I don't. So Flames and flames. Yes, exactly. And you can just stick with starter kit. Like we said, there's a considerable number of starter kit scenarios available at this point. And I have gotten dick done for clip encounters tonight. There's a considerable number of starter kit scenarios available in various products. They're in the magazines. There's a starter kit magazine coming. You can easily just play that. Are you going to have as much scenario variety as you do for full ASL? Absolutely not. You could never play the same scenario twice for ASL. You don't have quite that many regulars, quite that many starter kit scenarios, but there is a good number now, right? It's not like you only had like the 10 scenarios that came in the original squad leader. So there you go. If I go, I have shown up there before. The last year it was at that hotel that got, I don't know if it got condemned, but if it didn't, it should be. Then the last year it was there, I think, was the year I dropped in and kind of walked around and, talked to people. The people at the front desk, I stood there for like 10 minutes while they ignored me and had their own conversation. And I eventually just said, well, all I was going to do was tell them, hi, I'm here from Ardwulf's Lair. And I just, kind of want to walk around and talk to people because that was the mission. I wasn't going to sit down and play anything, but there's no reason I couldn't. So, excellent. Are you a Scotch man, Mike Reed? I wonder, because I like Scotch the best. There you go. I'm not 100% sure Dan's kidding here. Yeah, these are classic convention staples, as is, honestly, so is Call of Cthulhu. A different vibe, obviously, but I have never played Junta. I would love to. I am not going to buy it, however. So there's that. I could see people having made this decision too. I think when I got back in, I think the starter kit number 1 and 2 were out. Maybe number 3, but all were out of print when I started looking, as was the rule book. Beyond Valor at the time was available, so I bought Beyond Valor. It was about another year or so before both I had the money and MMP had the rule book. So this is a really interesting point. Are there examples? I'm positive there are, and I'm not thinking of any off the top of my head. Are there examples of war games where an older edition is universally preferred? I wonder if there is, because there might be, and I would strongly suspect that there is. I can tell you that is definitely the case with role-playing games, and I could name at least 10 examples in role-playing games of things that both I or somebody else has a preference for an older version of. The entire OSR thing is based on that exact thing. So let me mention this, actually. I meant to put this in the news section, too. So folks are actually starting to get and post pictures of the stuff that shipped, that GMT said they started shipping on February 5th. So it's really shipping. It's going to take a little bit of extra time because it's literally their biggest ever warehouse workload. So by a substantial margin. Ugh. So the edition wars. So what we mean by edition wars is actually the super duper fierce feuding online between different people. For a variety of games, but I feel like that whole thing started with D&D, right? With their 3rd edition, some people had a negative reaction to that. There were more people that had a positive reaction to 3rd edition. A lot of people had a very negative reaction to 4th edition. 5th edition was more warmly received, but as the thing continues into different editions, these are quite different games at this point. 3rd edition, 3.5, Pathfinder is a very different game from the current version of Dungeons & Dragons, in my opinion. Yeah, Aurora is actually closer to me than the other place, I think. Yeah, this is one. This is one example that I could think of people who would prefer to play Terrible Swift Sword versus, and I know Mark Herman prefers to play the first version of 3 Days of Gettysburg over the later versions because there are changes made to the command system. But that's an individual choice, and I think it's probably not that typical in that particular example anyway. I could be wrong. I tell you what, I would much prefer to have the Avalon Hill version of this game rather than the Phalanx version that is going to cost a huge pile of money and is going to take up 3 or 4 times as much shelf space. So, excellent. Oh, so Starfleet battles, good call. Now, squad leader is actually an example, right? There are people who preferred to stick with regular old squad leader over going to ASL. The question I would ask is, did those people go to ASL and then go back, or did they never transition in the first place? Because we saw an analogous situation in D&D where it was the, say first half of the 80s, and you had the advanced D&D books. I am positive that some people somewhere said, that's crap, I'm not dealing with that, I'm just going to play out of my old white box. Somebody said that. I never encountered any of those people until like the 2010s, maybe the 2000s. But I never heard a peep about that online, and I was like relentlessly online talking about this exact thing for a very long time. In my experience, everybody went to advanced. Now, did some people eventually step back? I think that happened. Now, when that happened is another question. Because remember, they rolled Advanced D&D out in a very controlled way. The first thing they released was the Monster Manual. Who cares? You're just playing with the Monster Manual with your old white rule books, right? So who cares? Then they release a player's handbook, and that does make some like really significant and obvious upfront changes. So there was the 1E people versus the 2E people and all that. Everybody hated each other. It was a big pain in the ass. None of this is worth feuding over. Find some common ground and settle for that. Now, maybe that means you make hard decisions, and this applies to wargaming too. Maybe that means occasionally you have to make hard decisions about people that you like that you're just not going to get to play with because you don't have the same taste in games. Oh well, that is unfortunate, but that is reality, right? I mean, if you don't like the same stuff, then you're not going to find something that you agree to play. Or if you do, it's going to feel like a concession that you both made, and then you're both going to be pissy about it. I've seen that happen too. Particularly backed up on the chat today. Weapon modifiers versus armor types. A lot of groups did not use this. Nobody that I was aware of ever used the old unarmed combat rules, which was just like this completely bizarre thing that, I mean, most people didn't even understand how it worked. Many of the rules, well, I'm not saying many, some of the rules, like this kind of thing, were not explained particularly well, like the unarmed combat rules in the AD&D books. They were just not. It really was a ground-up redesign of that game. It really was. But they rolled it out in a way that a lot of people just didn't notice. They're just like, well, this is just better, so we'll just play with this. There's more stuff. I can do more stuff. I have way more character options than I had in the old thing. So I could totally see preferring an older version graphically, but I also think that would probably be a nostalgia-driven preference. I didn't like THAC0, and I still think it is unnecessarily convoluted. It is, however, probably better than looking at the results on a table, which is what we did with first edition. So I don't know. I mean, I've got in many cases both. I've got both both versions of War in the Pacific, for example, both versions of War Between the States, both versions of. No, that's not true. I was about to say Empires of the Middle Ages, but I don't have an SPI Empires of the Middle Ages. But I've got like duplicates of a couple of them, and there's like repeat stuff. I have Terrible Swift Sword, but I also have 3 Days of Gettysburg. But those are completely different games at that point, right? Yeah, they have the same designer, and there's some of the same ideas, but they're very different games. Like I said, we never really figured out how this was even supposed to work, and it didn't come up that often for us. We just kind of made it not come up. So, this is interesting. British Albion distinctly remembers playing a bridge too far, and having multiple heroes was really powerful and can really affect the game. I could see that. Particularly if you get like several heroes like on the board at the same time, which is something I could see happening in that particular game, actually. So, yeah, nobody liked those. Nobody liked those. So, it's almost 10. So, let me talk about what's going on. So, we will be back on Sunday. I don't know if there will be a Thursday video or not this week. There might be. I have one that should get done. I'm just not sure it's going to get done. And I am working on an RPG thing, which I will talk about when it's closer. And the actual launch would absolutely 100% be a post-Origins affair. So we are minimally many months away, but I'm exploring options and fiddling with stuff at this time. No final decisions have been made, but I'm inclined to make it a fantasy RPG run and hard. That's my initial idea. So anyway. And we'll do Traveler at some point. Here's the thing. I have a specific thing I want to do in Traveler, and it is going to take a crapload of work to make it happen, and I am not ready for that. And I need something that I feel more up to speed on mechanically. Although I feel like I'm okay with the Mongoose Traveler 2nd Edition rules, but how many Traveler books is too many? I have no idea what language you are even speaking. But I have a specific thing that's going to require a lot of work to do, and I really want to get into a rhythm game mastering before running Traveler. That's kind of where I'm coming from there. I continue to accumulate product. More product is on the way. So whenever Mongoose prints them. So that is not something that is not going to happen. It's just not going to happen first because it has to be perfect, of course, because it is my favorite thing. So that's what I said. Now I will say, I mentioned this on the Discord earlier. I will be running a one-shot of Traveler at Buckeye Game Fest. So if you want to participate in that, cool. But I will probably cap the number of people at 6, to be honest. And we might have more takers than that. So don't count on it if you don't have confirmed. I do have rats and cats and cogs and dogs. I have a good amount of the digest group material. I think the only things I don't have, the digests themselves, I only have a couple issues. And like the 101 vehicles and 101 robots, those books, I don't have those. I do have for the survey and the 2 books that get turned into the World Builder's Handbook. I've got the Starship Operator's Manual. I've got the Volanian Vargur and the Burning Eye, or whatever the big campaign, the Flaming Eye, the Pirate Campaign, or whatever that is. I've got that. So I've got a lot of Digest Group stuff. I don't have any of the Clement Sector stuff. It is a much more sort of grounded sci-fi than is necessarily typical for Traveler. That is not a problem. But it is not necessarily something that I am necessarily interested in. There was another Cepheus Engine hack called Hostile, I think, that actually looks real interesting, inspired by things like Blade Runner and Outland and stuff like that. That looked pretty cool. Drinax is not what I have in mind, actually, but Drinax could be really amazing. I do think it is one of the greatest campaigns ever written. So, nice. Very nice. Yeah, these are hard to get. These are expensive. Last I checked, as is basically all the Digest Group stuff, because you largely can't get that material anywhere else. That is the single best by a lot source on the Volani, for example, and they just never done anything with that. I keep wanting Mongoose to do something with it, but they also want to be a little. Mark never really wanted to fight with the Digest Group people, but Mark is not making that call anymore, and Mongoose may decide it's time to do a Volani book now. So, and I do have the Mongoose Traveler Babylon 5 material as well. Have never done anything with it, but my idea is basically a substantially built out Deep Net Revelation. That is the campaign concept. But like the way I would want to run that would require me to do a lot of preparation, and I don't feel like I'm able to do that much preparation at this time. So, all right, folks, we are basically out of time, so I'm gonna call it right now. So don't forget to check out the links in the video description if you haven't done so already. Go ahead and like the video and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget about the Noble Knight affiliate link and the Patreon, and big shout outs to our new patrons, Rich, Arthur, and Jason, and to the good folks at Noble Knight Games, without all of whom's support, we would not be able to keep doing this. So everybody have a great rest of the night. We'll see you all again next Sunday, if not before.